Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. Super excited. We get to talk about the 2025 National Excellence Award Program, and we are lucky enough to be joined by some of our fabulous 2024 national winners, who are going to also share some of their insights and their experience with us. So I'll introduce them all formally later, but big shout out and a thank you to Jules, Rahel, Angela, and Michael, who are all going to talk about, how the program went last year and what they took away from it. So super excited for that. In the spirit of reconciliation, Auscontact acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. Today's webinar will go for approximately 60 minutes. It is our amazing launch for the 2025 program. And with the help of the guests that I mentioned, we hope that you take plenty away to get your minds thinking about recognition as a program, but equally where you can step into the National Awards program for 2025. I'm Fran Southward, CEO of Auscontact, and today we'll moderate the session. I'll just run through some general housekeeping with you while people are joining us. There's an opportunity for you to ask questions as we work through the session. As always, there's a Q&A button on the control panel. You can raise your hand and ask questions if you want, but utilize that QA or the chat feature. If the questions that you're asking are about the screens that we're looking at, so I'm going to take you through the program and talk about some of the categories and some of the changes we've made for this year. So if your questions are relevant to what we're talking about, I'll just answer them then. We'll jump in and use them. Otherwise, we'll keep it and have time at the end. As I said, we've got an amazing panel today, so save up some of those questions because I'm sure they'll be happy to answer anything that you might have as we work through it. If you have any audio issues or anything, check your settings in Zoom, make sure they're correct with the right audio device, which is something I'm always guilty of. Alternatively, you can return to the email that you would have got for confirmation and it'll have access to the phone numbers on there for you. And at the end, we'll make available all of the information that we're talking about today. So we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about our process. And I can see we had a few issues with tech, but it looks like it's all working now, which is great to see. I guess the first thing for me is really kind of calling out what we're now seeing is an incredibly interesting field of statistics that are coming out both of from the Gallup reports. There's some interesting studies by McKinsey. There's a couple from Oxford and Harvard that are really calling out the opportunity and the return on investment you get from participating in recognition programs and some of the high level stats that they actually result in within your organization. So I guess just, we could have given you 10 pages of statistics, but for me, there is nothing more important than an engaged workforce. And engagement comes from recognizing your value and knowing that people are actually looking at what you do and understanding how you're contributing to that end game. But again, this is all backed up by studies and surveys and research papers. Again, you can see plenty of them in play. But again, look at that first one, increasing engagement for organisations with strong recognition practices. And that'll include informal and formal, but a number of 52%, like that's incredible to actually change your engagement position. Again, we then go further. Employees are 18 times more likely to produce great work. So suddenly the performance results around recognition and feeling valued within your organisation start to actually play out. 80% of employees surveyed, and this Oxford University study actually surveyed over 5,000 people in the workforce. 80% said they work harder when they're appreciated. And again, if you translate that to what it does in the environment, Profitability. We all know that whilst we love to focus on the support and the balance and the people aspect of what we do, at the end of the day, there's a bottom line, regardless of your vertical. It's just a different bottom line. But if you think about profitability as a figure, an increase of 21%, where you've got an engaged workforce versus non-engaged. And the last one there, to me, this was a really nice one. 67% of employees rated praise and commendation as top motivators for performance. Again, it's about the impact that actually highlighting that you see and value the contributions that your team make. So if we look at at a really high level, why participate in recognition? Why participate in things that actually are about showcasing excellence? The stats kind of start the story. But probably for me, and you will all, know this from your own experience, the difference it makes to your people, standing up a little bit taller, really feeling appreciated for what you do. It is amazing the impact it has on culture and the impact that it has as far as discretionary effort. And not that that's why we do it, because again, it's actually just a really nice thing to do. But actually, it's supported by data and evidence that says getting this right will make a huge difference to how you operate, what your rhythm is, how likely people are to stay within your organization, and how they feel as far as loyalty and commitment. So all great reasons for people to step into and really amp up and recognize the great contributions your people are making. So if we look at our program, the way Auscontact National Excellence Program works, we have both our individual categories and our organisational categories. We are the longest running program of its kind in Australia, which is pretty amazing. This is our 31st year of awards, which, again, if you look at the industry, and I say it every year, and Michael, you probably hear me say it because I know you've judged for us a couple of times, we are blown away by the depth of talent, the absolute opportunity for us to see how close it is when we look across our states. And again, it doesn't matter if you're in a small, a mid, or a large contact centre. Actually, that doesn't come to play when it rolls out as far as what we're seeing as far as talent goes. So we have individual categories that pretty much cover every role in a contact centre, and this is deliberate. We want to make sure that every role that participates in our industry can be seen or see themselves in an award category. Because don't forget, it's not just people on the phones. We actually have a whole range of roles that are, side adjacent to actual phone work that contribute to the success and outcomes that you are delivering on behalf of your organisation. I'm not going to run through every name here of each of the categories, but we've made no changes to the individual categories that we've had for the last 2 years. We think they really successfully showcase each of those functional areas across any organisation. And again, that you can see yourself in those roles. So a great opportunity to actually, see the similarities, as well as, sort of where people are successfully delivering in each of those. Again, through our judging process, we were lucky enough to hear some amazing stories about the impact that some of our adjacent business functions are actually delivering, whether it was about recruitment, whether it was about workforce analytics and workforce planning, whether it was someone who was a business support role that was actually helping bring together all of the activities underway in the contact centre. Every single person was able to articulate the importance of their role. They had a real connection to purpose, and effectively showcased exactly why they were nominated in each part of the process. So it was great for us to see. We'll move on to our organisational categories. We've made a couple of changes to these. We've actually brought a couple of them together. So our big organisation category, of course, Contact Centre of the Year. a massive one that is incredibly competitive across the country. We then have two awards that focus on the customer experience, so digital transformation and workforce transformation, and then two that focus on employee experience. Now, they'll all have intersections across them, but our first of the employee experience is, again, our mental health and wellbeing. Incredibly important, continues to be important in this environment, and culture, engagement, and inclusion. So, two fantastic opportunities to really showcase both that customer experience and the employee experience through initiatives that you've got going on. And then the last one there is the Best Collaboration Award, which is a national award. And this is a collaboration between two organisations or more, or it could be two parts of an organisation that are coming together to actually deliver an outcome. So they're our organisational categories. And then we've got a couple that are national categories only. So these are not awarded at the state level, just at the national level. We're excited again this year to partner with GRIST for our Service Excellence Award and our Sales Excellence Award. Now, I've got to say there's a few people coming hard at NIB and Noble Oak who continue to excel in the service excellence and sales excellence. We had some highly commended organisations last year that stepped into that space. But again, incredible performance from both NIB and Noble Oak again. And the Service Excellence Award is where you get to have calls listened to. So redacted calls, they're assessed across micro behaviours, and they give you an incredible opportunity to learn from the reports that actually are provided to you as a result of that. And the Sales Excellence Award will be in the style of sort of mystery shopper. The Jane King Excellence Award for Innovation. This is, again, one of our national awards and looks at an organisation across all categories. And it is about an organisation. And so it's a judge's choice. Judges contribute to this as an outcome. It's not something you actually apply to be a part of. It is an award that's given via those judges throughout the program. And it's about an organisation who can showcase that future thinking, innovation and investment in people is absolutely embedded in the DNA of everything that we see from that organisation. And last year, that award was taken out by Allianz Australia. So they're our national categories. And again, they don't come into play until November. 14th of November, there we go, in Melbourne this year for our national award. Okay, the process itself. Many of you have been through it before, but it starts with a nomination. Our program has three components to it for most of our award program. There's a nominate, there's an online submission, and the online submission has two parts to it. It has some parts of the program that are sort of yes, no, drop down type answers. And then there are some that are free text questions where we get to learn a little bit more about you as an individual nominee or your organisation through the organisational categories. They're assessed by a separate set of judges before we shift into our interviews or presentations, depending on which category program you're in. All of that wraps up by mid-July, which stage we jump into the fun part of the program. And we get to celebrate every single Friday night in August around the country. We start off in WA with the first Friday. I can't tell you what date that is, but it must be very early in August, like the 1st or the 2nd, to be able to fit 5 awards in that period. So we start in WA, we move to South Australia, onto Victoria, into New South Wales, and wrap it up in Queensland. Fantastic events. There is nothing greater than a room full of people who know exactly what you're going through in your role. They know the pain that you are challenged by. They know the challenges with customers. They know it all, but they also know how rewarding it can be when you get to make a difference for your customers. So it's great to have a whole group of people in one room who get it and celebrate each other. There's nothing better. So we can't wait. State Awards, as I said, every Friday night in August before we then move on to our nationals, which is the 14th of November in Melbourne. At the conclusion of the program, we then send out feedback that goes to every person that's been a part of the program. And if you're lucky enough to be one of our national winners, we also then interview you, which we've done with a couple of the guys on the line today. We've got a few more booked, and that then becomes part of there's an opportunity for people to go and watch those videos and see what those national winners were able to actually showcase throughout the program. So you can see May to November. This is what do we say? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. But it is an exciting program that lets us really see the impact of investment and development that organisations are making in their people. And for me, not only do I get to see a lot through interview, but I also then get to interview separately the winners. And I've got to say, every single one I've done so far, I walk away and I go back to my team and I'm like, oh my God, that was amazing. And you can see why the people have taken out awards. It is incredible. And, certainly reminds us why we do what we do here and why this matters as far as the impact within your organisation. So that's the process for the awards. I think there's a couple of exceptions we'll go through. The Rising Star. The Rising Star Award doesn't have an interview, and it's a submission by a manager or a peer. So it still has the online submission. It's quite in depth, the questions that need to be answered. And it is a process that's celebrated at state and national level. The best collaboration, there is no live presentation. You actually submit a document and then it's judged. And yeah, again, it has a separate judging panel. I covered off the Service Excellence and the Sales Excellence Awards. The Service Excellence is where you have some redacted call recordings that Grist will go through for you, and the Sales Excellence Award will be actually managed via that mystery shopper type experience within a set period. So that's all part of the program. So they're the only exceptions to the process, and all of this information is available on the Auscontact website. Okay, dates to remember. Actually, there's a question here from Brad. Do both parties of the collaboration need to be members? No, Brad, they don't. As long as the submitting organisation is a member, they get member prices. But don't forget, non-members can also participate. They just pay a non-member rate. So as far as best collaboration, if the member is submitting it, all is fine. So dates to remember, here we go. Wednesday, the 19th of February to Friday, the 30th of May. Again, it sounds like a really long period, but that's when our nominations are open. And I go back to the fact that online submissions are due on the 30th of May. And, some of those questions are not yes, no. Some of them require you to have a real think. They're not overly taxing. You need to think about them and put your best foot forward through that as well, because they are an integral part of the assessment process. You'll see there, 30th of June is when the best collaboration presentations need to be submitted. And our judging period goes for the interview and presentations is from June 2nd through to Friday, the 11th of June. We operate a process where you can opt in and identify a time that suits you, but it has to be within that period. So you've got to make yourself available to make sure we can get the judging completed. And then for the Service Excellence Awards with the recordings, those calls are due by the 25th of July. And as you can see, there we go. Friday, the 1st of August is our WA event. So right through August, and then we can see there November sees our National Excellence event in Melbourne, which is super exciting. Feels crazy that we're already talking about November though, guys. Kills me. Okay, what's next here, Jess? Okay, we are jumping into our panel. So, like I said, we're super lucky to have some of our amazing winners from last year join us. So, we've got Jules from Bank of Queensland. Hey, Jules, thanks for joining us. We've got Rahel from Smart Service Queensland. There we go. And we've got Angela from HealthShare New South Wales. Now, Jules took out our Customer Contact Professional Award. Fantastic. Rahel took out our business analyst reporting professional. And Angela, your organisation took out an employee experience initiative of the year for diversity inclusion, which is fantastic. And then last but certainly not least, we have Michael Clark joining us, who was one of our judges last year. Michael's from Liveware. And has supported us on a number of occasions as a judge on our panel. We pride ourselves on having industry experts that step into that space and really help us out, making sure we're considering the most contemporary aspects of each of those categories that we possibly can. So, super excited to have you all join us. And, there's nothing better than hearing from you guys. So, I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and I am going to invite anyone that has questions for any of you to throw them into the QA for us. But, Jules, I'm going to start with you. How was the process? And I know of all of the people on the screen, you actually weren't able to be there for the national awards because you're on a big trip away. However, your team celebrated on your behalf, let me tell you. But the experience, we've just seen the experience goes from, kind of nearly now right through to November. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience participating in the process?
Absolutely. I think the way you described it earlier was quite accurate. It really is quite a marathon. The initial submission, the scarcity and the excitement about being nominated by your workplace and getting through to complete that online form was quite exciting. It was a lot to swallow, but once you get to it, you get through your questions and you start to draft some of those open-ended questions, which I thought were really interesting and a really strong way to communicate how and why I'm so passionate about customers, or in other categories, other versions of those questions. And then I found I was getting even more nervous and excited for the state awards night, which was very amazing, very well put together. It was quite nice to get together with everyone and really join in the atmosphere of all my other nominees and finalists. And I was very sad to miss the national night. I was unfortunately very unwell in Italy, but I had a great time streaming in from some of my colleagues' phones and watching everything unfold while I was lying in bed. It was wonderful. It was such an awesome experience to be a part of. And I felt really supportive, and going back to some of the studies earlier, like I mattered to my organization and to the broader customer service industry.
Yeah, I love that. And it really does make you feel that way. It reminds you. I think the other important thing, and it's interesting, I know when I caught up with you recently, we talked about the process of having to complete all of those elements and even preparing for the interview. It's actually quite nice to stop and reflect on what you do, because so often we are too busy and we just don't do it. So this actually makes you stop and kind of think about what do you bring to the table and how do you do what you do, which I think is really nice, because I just don't think we do that enough. I don't think we have that self-reflection time because we are all so absolutely busy. It's the first thing not to happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's, in every sort of customer service role, we're constantly moving one customer to the next, putting our heart and soul into every interaction we have with everyone. It's very rare for us to stop and smell the roses and reflect on some of the hard work that we've all put in to make sure that we can deliver some of the best customer service. And you're right, over the course of the process of inputting my submission and working with some of my higher ups and fellow colleagues to see and look into and be a bit more introspective about how and why we do the things that we do. It was pretty magical to take that inward look.
No, I love that. Rahel, if I think about the work you do at Smart Service Queensland, and I've got to say, your submission, your participation in the process, start to finish, even your speech at the end of the national awards, showcased such incredible technical skills, coupled with this deep understanding of people and the impact that your role has on people. Can you tell us a little bit about again, what was the biggest learning or takeaway that you had from the program? And for me, I love that we get to see the importance of some of those adjacent roles that often don't get to be part of, I guess, award processes because sometimes we just focus on the phone, the external customer, but you actually deal with different set of customers. Your end game's still the same. You're still at that same external customer, but actually you've got a bigger and broader set of customers that you're actually servicing. Can you tell us a little bit about, your learnings, the process that you went through, and all of that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Fran. Yeah, I think perhaps the biggest takeaway, and you touched on it in your introduction, I think the ROI on involvement and I'm sure Jules and Angela can echo the sentiment, is quite a significant one. The submission and interview process for me was where I garnered perhaps the biggest takeaway. It's not often one in perhaps more so in a supportive role can take a proverbial step back from BAU and project work to conduct that level of introspection and proverbial stock take necessitated by those interview questions. Whether that be from our assessing our performance and understanding the way in which our own deliverables as analysts and data professionals contributes to not only the entire delivery value chain, but I guess also the wider organizational goals and industry goals and challenges that we face. But also from a skill set and BA perspective, what's most fundamental, a skill set that's most overlooked and fundamental to us is that ability to communicate. And so the interview process alone, I think, was an exercise that was intrinsically beneficial. The ability to clearly communicate across stakeholders, problem statements, and craft very clear, value-driven narratives is critical to our role, perhaps the most important skill set. And the interview process, both in written and video format, was a sort of concentrated workshop in this endeavor. And then the feedback also was invaluable. So perhaps that would be my biggest takeaways in that clear.
Awesome. Yeah. And you're right, you raise a really good point there. Sometimes we get locked into thinking particular functions. And again, if I think data analytics, reporting, often we think actually they've got a very technical skill set, but we don't necessarily either invest or recognize and call out the actual requirement around that communication skill, stakeholder management, navigating some of those stakeholder challenges, but equally being able to translate data and the analysis that you've conducted in a way that connects more broadly with people who don't know data. So actually, you're speaking two different languages that you have to somehow translate and bring together, but equally build trust in all of those around you to actually take on board what your evidence is actually driving or directing. So you're right, it's incredible, and probably again another highlight that we saw throughout your process, your participation in the process, was your absolute ability to cover both of those. Your technical skills coupled with that, that human and communicative component was an absolute standout. So I loved that. And I think it needs to be more important within organizations. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to really see the investment play out. So it was great for us to highlight that. Angela, if you think about your program that you guys were a part of, so it was an organizational category for a start, so a little bit different. But you you were part of the presentation, you were then there on the night, you were there for nationals. And really the category itself was about showcasing the impact of what you were doing at a really high level and what it's actually driving from your people perspective, how it's impacting your customers, but equally that real focus on employee experience. Can you tell us a little bit about the process for the organizational category and kind of, what did you take away from it? How did you feel participating in it, and then the impact of that on your broader workforce? Because it's suddenly about your whole team, isn't it? It's not just about your individuals.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I loved the most about the category, that we were we were able to bring together a group of people who had all been playing a key part in diversity and inclusion at HealthShare, and to really share the experience of going through the process together was fantastic. Everyone has learned something from it, and everyone's learned something different as well. So we still talk about it most days, even now, and it's so far down the track from that initial process of getting ready and then going through the presentation and onwards. Some of in terms of the process itself, it was like Jules and Rahel have said, it's a rare opportunity to really reflect back on how you've been going. And when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and in fact any employee experience initiative, sometimes we can become so focused on what's left to do, the progress that's yet to be made, that it is almost too easy to minimize the progress that's been achieved. And it's so important to do that, because when it is that organization wide category, you're really examining a concept that takes everyone to really get it moving forward and to really make it a success. So the fact that we were able to almost use firstly that nomination process and the questions that were asked, to also pose those questions to a broader group of people who might not have been on the presentation panel, but gave us feedback that helped us demonstrate the impact of the initiative was really key. And one of those highlights that we might not have consciously expected in the moment, but has certainly been one that's been such a significant one. It was an opportunity to really then share with our people, hey, telling them about Auscontact and the awards process, and giving them the sense of pride as well. Like, look, hey, we made this together. We're all living up to these standards that we've set together, we've created together, and look at how far we've come. And to see everybody taking pride in that was incredible. And then when we won the state award, everyone was so thrilled. And then when we got to the national award as well, there was just such a sense of pride that was beautiful to see. It's so worth any nervous energy that any of us might have felt during the presentation, or making sure we're getting solid responses to the initial questions. All of it's so worthwhile. Highly recommend it. If anyone out there is considering nominating, highly recommend you do it. It's so worthwhile.
I love that. And I love your point about when it's an organizational category, it is about representing everybody. So giving them all, that piece of winning as well.
That's
That's actually
right.
really nice. Hey.
Yeah, definitely. And it's it's our initiative was all about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And there's no better way to do that than to, one,
Yeah.
live up to what you set out to do, but secondly, to achieve recognition at this national level. It's everyone was just really, really thrilled, and it's driven us to work even harder and set stretch goals for ourselves now. So it's just going to keep inspiring us
Love
ongoing.
that. If you think about, you've just said it made you guys really sort of stop and take note. It's instilled sort of that sense of pride. Jules, Rahel, what have you seen as a result of your win? And Jules, I know you weren't physically there, but again, I'll call out your team were, super, super proud of you and on your behalf, certainly on the night. But what's happened post then? Have you kind of had the chance to kind of sit back in it a little bit and think about it? Does it impact how you feel about your work? We saw those stats at the beginning, right? Do they play true?
Oh, absolutely. I think whilst winning the award was amazing and something that I'll never forget for me, I think it has meant just as much to my fellow colleagues on the floor, my close friends at work, seeing that their friend and seeing that their colleague, or just knowing that someone in our building, in our space, in our little floor on level 28 is, we're getting that sort of recognition at a national stage. It's contagious. Lots of people ask. I've got my profile picture set to my national winner icon that you guys send out, and everybody's keen to know and reflect on the journey. And I get lots of questions about it. And I think following the win, we've just seen a real buzz in the office. Like, it's everything for me, but I feel like everybody else has got a little piece of everything to help make things a little bit better and make the workday a bit more enjoyable.
I love that. What about at Smart Service Queensland, Rahel?
Oh, absolutely, Fran. I think a lot of the approach or methodology that has underpinned a number of the projects that we've undergone at SSQ, primarily within the business analyst, but also we have business intelligence teams and across the entire service delivery value chain, is that reimagining of data from a byproduct to an asset. So this win for our team was really an acknowledgement of that approach, and also support and industry-wide support that we are on the right path. And I guess resulting from this, we've been able to continue to collaborate across the often siloed work teams and continue to contribute to a milieu where data is seen as empowering, often competing business priorities. And so that's been a very good, catalyst and foundational support for the approach that we've taken at SSQ.
Love that. And I love when you see that it then influences what more you can do, right? It's not that, you're already doing great things, but sometimes external acknowledgement also helps navigate some of those relationships that may not have necessarily adopted as quickly internally. So that's always good to see. I think, Jules, though, you touched a little bit then on a point, and I've got to say, every single person that we were lucky enough to have participate last year, every interview, every single person was so proud of what they do for their organisation. It rang through, regardless of category, regardless of individual or organisation. There was such a common thread of commitment to customer. So that was great to see when you think about our industry, but such a value and an appreciative component from an individual to an organization. And that was really nice to see as well. So I don't know how many times people would say to me, we'd finish up the interview and we'd say, great, next steps, good luck, all that sort of thing. And they say, I'm already a winner. Being nominated, that already showed me that I'm valued. It already showed me that I matter. It already showed me that, my peers or my leaders or my whoever think I'm doing a good job, and that they had already internally celebrated that. So it was great to see that it was from every kind of stage, that it still called out the warm and fuzzy. It still made people feel appreciated and valued for what they were contributing, which, again, is the heart of the program, right? Michael, I'm going to jump in and ask you a couple of questions. Obviously, judging is a totally different scenario, right? We only have industry experts, so deep understanding of the industry. We work with you. We make sure there's extensive moderation processes, all of that in place, because we really pride ourselves on, number one, the rigor involved in this process. You don't just get to submit something and we go, there's only 3, so one of you is going to win. This is rigorous. And I think we've heard that from everybody that participated in the process. But when you think about your judging experience, how did you find that? And would you recommend it to others?
Look, I've been lucky to judge the last 2 years and a mix of, organisational and individual categories. So it's been a bit of fun. So yeah, look, absolutely. You said that these awards have been running for 30 odd years, nearly 30 years, Fran. I can remember participating in awards, I'll probably age myself, at least 10, 15, maybe even 20 years ago, in various guises and roles and the impact it had. And so it's really, exciting to be involved as a judge. I think it's a really strong process. As you said, there's the ability to pair up with another judge, perhaps someone that you don't know within the industry, to share your insights and engage as you're working through the submissions, and firsthand see and hear the passion that is coming from each participant, whether that's an individual award or an organisational award, as they're presenting and sharing their achievements, and really seeing what the best of the best within Australia looks like.
Yeah. Did you identify or notice recurring themes? Were there clear opportunities that you observed or anything like that you saw throughout the program? And obviously, all of our judges contribute to our feedback report. So on every interview that you do, you write comments. We have all of that then comes together in an overarching piece of feedback. Like there's a lot that you contribute to as a judge, and I know there's a lot of time that you contribute and dedicate to the process, and we totally appreciate it. But again, we think that's really important. We think that's what makes these stand out, and the integrity of the awards is
absolutely
it really matters.
Yeah, and look, I guess for people that are thinking about submitting or have done so before and want to look at, well, how do I win? Use the material that Auscontact send you is probably my biggest tip. So there's a bunch of material that's sent to you to help you prepare and help you go through what should I present on when I'm meeting with the judges. Do not underestimate that pack and that advice, because that's what we're judging on. We're looking and understanding and listening for the evidence of what you've achieved, how you're backing that up in terms of quantifiable evidence. And so it's really important as a judge that we get under the hood and understand what you've achieved individually, organisationally, and passion's a huge part of it. But an evidence base is really important, and just use that guide from Auscontact to sort of tick off what are the things that I need to present against, and am I proving that if I'm going for Contact Centre of the Year, for example, am I proving that I'm the best of the best because I'm ticking off all of the elements that the judges are going to want to hear about?
That's such good advice, and certainly from our perspective, we are trying to see the best of the best. So we give really clear elements that we want covered off in those presentations. So, and I know, Angela, you and your team clearly went through that criteria and thought, how do we showcase our best side in each of that? And certainly we saw some that thought, oh, well, yeah, I get the idea, but didn't actually showcase or even address in many of the instances. And it's hard because as judges, you're like, come on, I just want to hear it. But equally, it's an even and level playing field. We want you to do your best, but we're not going to give you the answers because, within the process, we still want you to participate. So I think that's great advice. And I'm sure, Angela, you would agree that it's important to really look at that criteria and understand how and what you need to include, but really drill down into, is what I'm showing about that particular element, whether it's, I don't know, engagement, is that really actually going to showcase what we want them to see about us? So it's about taking it to that next level. And if I think about the individuals, Michael, and I know you judged organisation categories this year, but individuals, certainly where we saw a real opportunity was in where individuals gave examples. And Jules, you nailed this. You talked about what you did, why it mattered, and how you did it. So it didn't just stop at, I did this thing. You talked about why it was important to do that thing and how you did that thing and what was the impact of doing that thing, which gave judges this opportunity to hear a really resolved response that actually went from, the driver to the outcome and equally showed you in it. So again, certainly a lot of the feedback we had for individuals was that structure around responses was really key. to be able to demonstrate and put yourself into the examples that the judges were asking for. So similar to a job interview, we say these are a great way to build up some of those skills. I've got to ask Michael, if you were talking to someone who thought, oh yeah, maybe I'd have a crack at judging, would you recommend it?
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Look, I think, I do a lot of consulting, so I often come in at the moment and work with organisations that want to improve. And so judging is really great because I can see organisations that have already done a lot of the hard work, that have made a lot of those achievements and had some great wins and outcomes. And that's really helpful to get a sense of what's going on. But I think other than just seeing what is happening within the best of the best within Australia, I think it's also a great way to give back to the industry. We've got a lot of people in this country who've been involved and around contact centres for many decades, and some of those that are relatively new to the industry, but keen also to give back. And I think, if you're thinking about judging, I would absolutely encourage you to reach out to Fran and Jess and have a conversation if you're unclear, because it is something that is really rewarding and will give you some great insights into what's happening right across the contact center and customer experience space within this country.
Yeah, no, that's great. We love that you would recommend that. And I think for me, when we were pulling together the feedback reports, it was important that we gave insights that allowed people to kind of build on from where they were. And we put we put a lot of time actually with our judges into trying to showcase what people that were really successful in the process were able to demonstrate, what they were showing that they were doing. And we've got a couple of comments in the chat bar there. Steve from MyOb, thanks Steve, said his feedback report was super insightful too, post the fact. And Kat from Datacom, again, providing great feedback there about the feedback. Sounds crazy, but for us, it's so important that there's an opportunity for something to be learnt from the process, but equally to kind of call out the great stuff as well. And we've got a few of our winners on the line, which is fantastic to see from last year. Mark has called out there about the process. So they won National Award for engagement and culture in the organisational category. And I was lucky enough to interview Mark and Luke just this week for their winners interview, and really sort of dig deep into what they had done, what had driven them to it, where they were now, and what was the impact within their organisation. So Mark's kind of calling out there that, again, the process to reflect on how far they had come was a great process, and winning the national award has inspired us to continue to improve. That's awesome, and great to see. And I think the real opportunity with organisational categories is, like you said, Angela, that it is the whole team. It's certainly celebrated, and often there's such incremental change when it's a big piece, and sometimes they can go for years, right? And again, kind of trying to pull that together and say, actually, this is where we started, and this is now kind of where we are. Not only is the process great, but it is rewarding to then throw that back into your organisation to showcase that progress and the impact that it's having. Jules, Angela, Rahel, if you think about any other impacts you've seen internally as a result of taking out the national program for each of your respective categories, do you think, have you had or have you seen great acknowledgement from your senior leadership within your organisations? Has it been kind of a bit of a big deal for you guys to have taken out an external program like that? Anyone can jump in.
Speaking from effectively what a lot of organizations have as an entry point for them, the level of recognition that's come from very senior members of the group has just been so amazing to see. We have consultants that are, on my level, we're all starting here at this entry point to banking and finance with BOQ Group, but also to customer service in a corporate environment for a lot of people interacting with stakeholders that are like far, far up the flagpole. And it's just so great to see that communal and just togetherness that this award has brought to the organization, to show that we can all talk to each other and all of our experiences with customers. It's not just a one department, one person's job to speak to the customers and no one else cares about it. It's really been a good opportunity for the organization to reflect internally and see how every part of BOQ Group, at least for us, interacts with customers, not just me and my colleagues on the front line, but how we build ourselves up together as an organization that values customer first ideals.
Love that. And Jules, what you touched on there at the beginning, suddenly you are getting more insights that actually your senior leaders are just people too, right? And sometimes this can break down real barriers, perceived barriers. They're not real. And they're just people. They're really proud of you and for you, and love that they can celebrate it. So I love when you start to see internally, that dialogue really opening up, that kind of everybody wants to celebrate it. I love that. So that's awesome that it's happened there. What about you, Rahel? Is the same sort of thing in your organisation?
Absolutely, Fran. Similar to Jules, we've incredibly supportive. We have an incredibly supportive team and organizational culture. So there was a lot of support and celebration across all of our realms. And I guess what the award did for us also is lend further credence to an approach we had already taken to, which was whilst we have, within BA realm, whilst we have a stalwart of tried and tested methodologies and approaches, the importance of remaining front of industry and technical insight, but also in challenging heuristic process and decision making, and empowering innovative approaches and thinking and solutions to problem statements. And that's been across all of our teams. So it's been fantastic to see.
Love that. And I think touching on something you sort of said earlier as well, it's great for your organization to actually recognize you are leading the way when it comes to some of this stuff. What you are able to showcase actually demonstrates industry leading outcomes, industry leading success. And that's a really big deal. And, again, is reflective of the investment from your organization, but equally the investment that you are all making as people within the system. So, I think that's, such a powerful thing to look at. So it certainly, means you've got to keep raising that bar a little bit. But, that's when it becomes fun, right? You can, I think the line in the sand almost provides the opportunity to innovate. What can we try next? And how do we fail fast at something else? Because you've got the confidence and trust within the organisation to give things a try. I think that is often an unintended consequence of having that external recognition, because it shows that you really are doing very, very well at what you're doing. So it kind of gives you a bit of leeway.
It does. And a network of incredibly passionate and talented SMEs across all of the teams. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And Angela, what about with you? Was it celebrated internally? Was it, kind of seen beyond the contact center environment that this is something that your organization has supported? And what a great win.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the greatest elements was that amongst all of the celebration and the acknowledgement of the progress so far, and this award, was that it was also a wonderful example of how a contact center, which is often a contact center is downstream, one little bit of a satellite function across like a broader organisation, right? And as HealthShare, we're providing shared services for New South Wales Health. Thinking about the health system, some people don't even know that there's a contact center in HealthShare. And when we think about health, we often think about the doctors and the nurses, but HealthShare is there to support them and to answer their questions and to make sure that the items that our frontline medical workers need are ready to go at the time that they need them, so that they can then provide the best possible care to patients across New South Wales. So knowing all of that, knowing how our contact center fits into such a large, complex statewide organization with such a responsibility, it's been incredible I'm sure all of us are very aware of the innovation that happens and stems from contact centers, but to be able to actually show that back to the broader organization and the broader health system and say, hey, this is something that we're making a lot of progress on, and we want you to know about it. We want to be inspired by, but also inspire you, has been phenomenal. So it's an excellent example of how, whether it's in one of the individual categories or in the organization category, it's a way of us also helping the broader industry understand beyond their, first impressions of what a contact center might do, to actually see the real significant impact of all of that meaningful data that we have, all of the experiences that we create, all of the initiatives that stem from that focus on humans at the heart. And that's been one of my favorite elements is, it's been a way of really giving our people a voice from the front lines, but also letting that voice resonate throughout the organization, which is as broad as it is, and then throughout the hierarchy as well.
Love that. And you're right, it's so diverse when you think about the different, even if you think about different customers across the board, whether they're internal or external. But as you say, some of the work you're doing is actually invisible unless it's not done. As soon as those supplies are not in a hospital, then it's noticed. As soon as, someone else I was talking to yesterday, as soon as the pay isn't managed, then it's noticed, right? So sometimes it's the invisible nature of the work that actually makes the wheels turn, that is important to kind of celebrate and as you say, recognize beyond just being considered a transactional hub, but actually thinking about the real impact more strategically about what you're driving and doing on behalf of your organization. I love it. I could talk about this stuff forever. We've got a question here just in relation to participants and can centres outside of Australia participate. Well, we've had plenty of organisations participate with centres in New Zealand before. So yeah, we certainly, and we've got members that are not just based in Australia that have participated in the program before. So certainly not closed off. But if you've got any questions, you just reach out to any one of the team and we can help you out. I am mindful of time. I am going to say one last question to each of you. Would you enter again in the program? Jules, would you do it again?
Look, I want to say it's as simple as absolutely. I loved every single but I don't think it should be me again. I'd love to see somebody else get the opportunity. Would I encourage someone else to do it? Without second thought. Would I step through it with them? Absolutely. But I'd love to see somebody else take it away because there's just too many people in customer service.
Love that. And that's an important thing to recognize. There's lots of great people doing great things. Angela, you guys, would you would recommend it to others? Do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a valuable experience that is so worthwhile. Absolutely.
Love that. And Rahel, what about you guys at Smart Service Queensland?
Oh, absolutely. We're looking forward to seeing the next batch of applicants come through as well.
Cannot wait. And we are so privileged and grateful that we get to actually see it across the board. It brings me nothing but joy, I've got to say. And, I referenced before that I jump into my huddle every morning with the team. I'm like, oh my gosh, you've seen who I spoke to yesterday. They're amazing. And then Ash, if she's been doing interviews, same deal. So we are so privileged to be able to get to see the caliber of talent that you all have in your organizations. And we're so grateful that you put them on a stage. We know it gives you great outcomes. We know it does things to help your organization, but actually it helps us strengthen the industry when we get to showcase talent. We hear far too much noise about terrible or poor examples of customer service. Our mission is to actually make the louder voice about the great customer service that we are seeing. So we will be pushing out the amazing interviews that we have with all of our winners over social media over the coming weeks. So make sure those listening that you jump in and watch those and listen to them. They're fantastic. And yeah, we can't wait to see what this year's nominations bring and what they get to showcase about your organisation and your leadership. So guys, thank you so much for being part of today. Michael, thank you for judging. We know you do it all the time, and it's scary when we think back to all of those years as ATA and etc. when sadly I think I was probably at some of those same awards 20 years ago. Frightening. But I can't wait to see who's there this year and who gets to be a part of getting up on that stage and really showcasing talent. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Jules. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Rahel. Thank you, Michael. And thanks, everyone, for coming along. It's been fantastic.